Hey everybody, this is Nathan Young, founder of More Leads Online and host of the Home Service Leaders podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here with Zach Ausherman. Uh,
Exactly.
thank you, who owns and operates Ausherman Painting in Pennsylvania. Did I get that part right too?
hmm
Awesome. And the company, I was like, I hope my notes are right. And the company has been around for over 40 years now. Zach, tell us about Ausherman, what you guys do, and how you got here.
Sure. So we are 42 years old. The company, I'm not, you know. My dad started it in 1979. What happened was he worked for another painting contractor in York, and TMI incident in Harrisburg, which is just a couple miles north of York, happened, and his boss said, "If you leave, you won't have a job when you come back."
Mm.
So he left. He went south, and then when he came back to York, he started his own business. Um, there for about, like, I think it was about 10, 15 years. He worked by himself, or with a helper here or there, and then got involved with some different consulting in different parts of the country, and was able to build the business. And basically by the mid to late 90s, wasn't painting anymore. Was building the business, and yeah, we are now 12 painters. We have 6 crews. We seem to specialize in a lot of older homes. York we're 2 hours west of Philadelphia, an hour north of Baltimore. So the closer you get to the coastal cities, the older the homes are. It just makes sense.
Right,
That's where America started. So
right.
um, a lot of cool projects we've done recently. We did a really cool project in Gettysburg. Gettysburg is just a really cool town. If anybody gets out this direction, I definitely recommend stopping there. Huge part of our history, of course. And we've done a lot of other older homes, early 1900s, that kind of thing. I'll be honest, we kind of fell into that
Hmm.
a little bit, just because I think being as large as we are, we can take on those projects and be
Right.
done in a couple weeks, 3 4 weeks. When the little guys that are 2 and 3 man crews, they'll be there for 3 months.
Right.
So it
So there are some things that like it almost you you almost like have to be a certain size before you can even get to say yes to some things.
Right. And we know that when you get to a certain size project, we know who we're competing against too, because we know the other contractors in the 4 county area that are big enough to bid
Mm,
and work on that project. When you're bidding on smaller stuff, you could be up against the chuck in a truck or whatever.
yes.
So
Absolutely. Oh, right. So your competition expands the smaller and smaller you go. Obviously, so I want to circle back to some of the stuff you're saying about your dad and your family because in our pre-show, some of the things you said about that were really fascinating. I have those notes a little bit. One of the so I want to dive into that thing you just said about competition for just a second. Now, obviously, don't say anything bad because who knows? They might listen someday. But you said you pretty much know who your competition are. How normal do you think it is to know who your competition is in your space, and how important do you think it is not necessarily to pay attention to them all the time, but like to know who they are and what they're doing?
what I think, for me, it's really important that you just know your market.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily your competition per se. It's knowing your market completely, knowing the tendencies. It's kind of strange. I mean, we work in York, but then we also work closer to Harrisburg, Mechanicsburg, Camp Hill area, and it's amazing just the 30-minute difference in drive time, and how different those two markets are.
Hmm.
So it's just knowing those markets. I read a lot of different business books, and I like Simon Sinek. And one of the things that Simon Sinek talks about is not worrying too much about differentiation and worrying too much about your competitors. It's knowing what you're good at and promoting what you're good at, because if you do that well, you're going to beat those guys.
Hmm. Man,
So
yes. Have you read, just out of curiosity, have you read The Infinite Game or heard him talk about The Infinite Game?
yep, I read Start With Why in the Infinite Game. He's coming to Lancaster in September, so I'm looking
Oh,
forward
hype.
to seeing him. Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk in person last year, and I have never been like much of a. I've never cared about the celebrity
Sure.
concept stuff. But I admit to being just like nominally starstruck when
Mhm.
I saw him in person, and I can imagine feeling very much the same if I like got to see Simon Sinek. I would be like, oh shit, like you're the for real, like.
Right. Yeah. He was supposed to come last March, and then of course COVID hit.
Well,
And
yeah,
he's been real gracious with. I'm a member of a family business council
okay,
here. I think they have 400 companies or something like that. I could be
wow,
completely wrong, but all over the area, and they sponsor these big events. They
that's
have
super cool.
Yeah, they had Alan Lally, I think, 2 years ago. The old Ford CEO.
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah, yeah, they do. They bring in some really good speakers.
Well, that sounds awesome. Like, what? I didn't have this in my notes originally, but like, how did you get involved in that? I mean, is that something your dad did? Is that something that they sort of reached out to you? Like, how do you get connected to a group like that?
Well, so there's one. I think it's maybe one of the granddads. One of the older groups. It's been around for a while. It's called the Delaware Valley Family Council. And then this group came out at Lancaster. Kind of mimic them. They're not exactly the same, but it's called the High Center. It's Dale High was the guy who started it. Owns a big construction firm, but they determined that it was a good thing to bring a bunch of family businesses together. And we were invited by a builder that we do some work for. We don't do a lot of new construction, but we help them on all other projects.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually have a painting industry friend in Lancaster that invited us too. So they just have some really, really good speakers. I remember one, they had the CEO of Tabasco,
Oh,
and you wouldn't think Tabasco is a family run company, but it is.
huh.
It's not publicly shared or anything, and they've been around for, I think they said he was either the fifth or sixth generation. So
Wow.
yeah, and just how many family members they have, and how they allow. You still have to start as like a stock boy, even if you're a
Right.
family. You got to start from the beginning, and that was really
They
cool
were
to
like
see.
nepotism, right? We've heard about that. No.
No, right, right, right. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me come back to that in just a second. I'm fascinated by that. It also sounds like that's pretty local, but I know some people. So I live in the Twin Cities right now in Minnesota, and I just recently got connected to someone who specializes in sort of like working with family businesses, and especially in that and helping them to understand how to transition really well. And I grew up in a family business, and well, several, for better or worse, mostly worse. And uh, me and all three of my brothers did not get the transition done like we. So right, yeah, that's a whole interesting. I won't go down that road, but I'll bring up a little bit more about stuff that you talked about with your dad and
Mm.
taking over the business. But I had a couple other quick questions. Something that I noticed when I was like looking into Ausherman in the first place is we spend some time on Instagram. That's kind of the place where we hang out social media wise. I spend most of my personal time on LinkedIn, but then for this, I spend a lot of time on Instagram. You guys post some amazing stuff. You mentioned a couple cool projects, and I saw one of those whitewash projects or lime wash projects you mentioned, and I was like, oh my gosh, that looks like incredible. But I wanted to not just point at like how cool the bell tower was or how cool the lime wash project was, but it seems like you guys spend a solid amount of time investing into your Instagram account. Can you break down how that has helped the company, or maybe not helped in the way that you thought it would, whether that's with hiring or with marketing, or just like how have you seen that investment play out?
So it made it really easy when I think it was a couple years ago when Facebook, bought them, and then they made it pretty easy to have posts run from Instagram into Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of why we started in that space. We used to do just basically Facebook when I first started. I came to work for my dad about 5 years ago, and it was very scant. They didn't put much on, and they put a lot of articles and stuff on that just didn't resonate with anybody. It was just kind of silliness, waste of time. Um, and there's a couple painting companies around the country that are really good with Instagram, and I kept seeing it and kept seeing it. Like, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to figure this out. So, 2.5 years ago, it took the leap, and it did make it a lot easier. Like I said, most of the posts that you see on our Instagram go right into our Facebook. And that's important for, again, it goes back to knowing your market. Pennsylvania is either the second or third oldest state in the country, meaning age of person.
Right.
So there's reasons for that. We don't tax pensions and retirement funds, so you might as well stay here and not get your money taken.
Yeah.
But
I can see the draw.
Right. What that does is, most of the audience on Facebook is older for the most part now.
Yep.
So that's kind of why it was important that we were in that space. My audience on Instagram, to be honest, is more painting contractors. It's people around the country, and some of that was just going on there and following other guys, and they follow you back, and then you create the community there. I do think that it will pay off. I'm not one of those people that I need an ROI right away. Mm-hmm. I know that some of the stuff that we're gonna do is gonna take a little bit to catch hold and go. But like I said, the difference in my two markets, I do think that my northern market, my Mechanicsburg and Camp Hill market, is a little younger, and I do think we have seen some more Instagram push from them. So,
okay, you said something just now that caught my attention. Which is that you're saying I don't need an ROI on this right away. So now, More Leads Online, we specialize in search, right? So we do web design and local search, and that's organic SEO, right? And we also do paid search and local service ads. So we break that down, that conversation, into ROI all the time. So whenever I talk to somebody who's thinking about getting this stuff, I break it down and I say, what kind of ROI are you looking for? Are you looking for short-term ROI? You need to invest dollars, you need to turn cash now, right? Like right. You want to put something in and have something money back, have something out in a week or 2 weeks or a month. Or are you looking for the long game, which eventually is a lot cheaper, right? You build up that brand, you build up, eventually it starts, and it probably has staying power. So as you've thought about marketing, you're clearly playing a long game on the Instagram side. So I'd be curious, how are you thinking about those two things, that long game and that short game? And like, how are you juggling those two right now? Like, you don't have to give us your secrets, but like, but maybe one.
But I haven't read it. It's actually sitting on my table here. But I know Gary Vaynerchuk, you brought him up. Mm-hmm. Talks about jabs and right hooks.
Yes.
So a lot of my stuff is just jabs. It's just putting pictures out there of beautiful projects, and mm-hmm. One thing I do try to do a lot of, because I personally don't have a lot of painting experience, is I try to give credit to my guys. Mm. All the time. They're the ones out there dealing with the heat and dirt and all that stuff. So I try to do that as much as I can. Where are we going with this? Oh, but the jab and the right hook. So it's even today, if you look, this morning I did a right hook. And that right hook was just letting everybody know, listen, we are into September now. If you want exterior painting done, you're going to need to call us.
Yeah.
And we boost those ads. So there's probably 5 or 6 a year that we'll boost. And it's just basically getting ready for the next season. So, or finishing up the current one. So in a couple months here, or maybe even within the next 6 to 8 weeks, I'll probably put a call to action out for interior work. So it's just trying to stay ahead that way. And in most of the time with the right hooks, we do, we boost them. Just trying to get more people in the loop. So
We know it's June.
right.
I'm looking at this post. These are some freaking gorgeous homes and projects, by the way. As a consumer, because I have a house, and we actually had ours painted like last week. These are awesome. I love seeing pictures like this, like showcasing. You've done several before and afters, and every single time I look at those, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want to see. But yeah, this post is that right hook. Like it's right here. Here's your website. Here's your call to action. Here's letting people know. Like, yeah, this makes perfect sense to me. And you said you're going to boost this. Something you said in our prep call was like, if it's resonating, let it resonate.
Right.
So you're like, yeah, if it's working, put some money behind it. Let it keep working.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that I said that to somebody else later that day. I think I've said it 2 more times since then, and I was just like, oh right, yes. After you said it, I was like, duh. But it really did strike me. Okay, well, so you're doing these things. That's your right hook. That's sort of like, would you say that's one of your short term ROI? Like you're making an intention, right? You're saying, hey, book something.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So being in business for 42 years, I mean, I would say probably almost half of our projects are from past customers.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's I need to fill that extra space, and we are growing. But a lot of even these right hooks are nothing immediate.
Hmm.
It's September and October that we're looking to fill.
Yep.
But it's important that I keep people in the loop with that. And we aren't one of those contractors that will move a bunch of people to fit someone in fast. It's amazing how many calls we get that people think that we're plumbers or something. And, we can be out there in a couple of days. It's just, it's no, that's not us. So yeah, majority of our stuff is, mid to long term.
Okay. Well, and so you just said something that is also on my notes, which is like you have a certain amount of guys, and the projects that you do take on generally do take a little bit longer, and so you have to plan out a little longer. On some level, people would think that there's some luxury to that, right? Like, oh well, I know we're booked out to whenever, and so you can be thinking ahead a little bit. I actually would consider that fairly stressful, because it means that you have to be thinking about hiring 3 months ago for October.
Mm-hmm.
like you already have had to figure that out way in it, right? Because you don't have brand new jobs coming in where you're like, oh, I can just bring in a guy and then they're going to be busy right away. And like, no, you've already got this planned out, and you're not going to be able to book more. And so it seems like you take everyone being on the bus, being in that right seat, and like everyone rowing in the same direction, like pretty seriously. Can you help me understand like how you got there?
Sure. Yeah, we do big time. I can't remember what the statistics are, but every bad job you have, that person tells 10 people or something like that.
Right.
Every good job you have, it's 2 or 3 that they'll tell.
Yes.
That's just human nature, I guess. So quality is number one for me, and I don't want to ramp up so fast that, that we lose that quality. We could probably, to be honest, have 15 or 16 guys.
Hmm.
But that would mean, compromising on some things that I don't want to compromise on. And I don't have the infrastructure. I have a sales guy and 2 office staff right now,
Mhm.
to really support that. So there would be some guys floundering, and honestly, I know quality would go down.
Hmm.
So that's really why, yeah, we would just not. I'm not willing to, you know, bring a bunch of people in just to have bodies.
Well, and you're saying that's not just a growth strategy. I mean, it's like a growth strategy, both short and long term, right? Because you're saying not only I'm not willing to just bring people in to potentially take on a couple extra jobs to make quick cash, because you're thinking long term, and you're saying, because if they don't do a quality job, I'm actually going to burn my market, and that's going to hurt me later.
Right.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. So we're not a huge. I mean, York is. I think the county's 450,000.
Mhm.
So I mean, our market's probably 3/4 of a million, 1 million people. So I mean, it's not small by any
Right.
means, but it's not a large, huge market either. So we're in that middle where if we do, shit a brick too many times,
Yeah.
people are gonna know that. So it will definitely hurt. The other thing I take into account too is I want my guys to have work year round. So
Mm.
I don't want to overstaff that I have to lay a bunch of people off in the winter. Now, this last winter was weird. We sold out the winter mid-January.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's really strange for us. Typically, we're only about 2 or 3 weeks ahead, in the winter, because a lot of homeowners, do their own interior painting. So
Yeah.
the market shrinks. There's only so many, church, jobs and that kind of stuff inside that, where everybody's, itching for. So yeah, it's important to me that we're not laying a bunch of people off. It's not good for morale. It's not good for continuity of team. It's not good for a lot of stuff. So it's the other reason why we don't ramp up a lot. Now, I'll be honest, we do try to get maybe 1 or 2 college kids to help us out,
Hmm.
in the summer, and that really helps because they go back to school,
Yeah.
in September. So then I don't have to worry about keeping them going. But
That
yeah,
makes
that's
sense.
that's
Well,
another
okay.
factor.
So let me, uh, everyone around is talking about a hiring shortage. I'm not just talking about home service guys. Now, and realistically, home services and the trades have been talking about a hiring shortage for like
Oh
40
yeah.
years. Like,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
like I grew up with people being like, we need to get more people in the trades. And I believe it. And I was in the trades, right? So I was a bricklayer. I was a union bricklayer, and then the company that I was with left the union. And we won't go down that path.
Right.
So I've been there, I've seen it. But so we're talking about it in like hyper crunch time right now. Like there's no one can get anyone. But you've actually brought on a few apprentices this year. Like, okay, so you're pretty considerate about this. Like, tell us how did you find them? How are you training them?
So we did one big hire for us. I can't remember exactly. It may have been January, February, something like that. So with us having the winter sold out, we were advertising for people in January, and that's huge. If you can do that, and you can pick off some experienced guys who, for some reason that company is not selling, or something's happening where they're not happy, it's a really good time to go after experienced people. So we did have one guy, that's spearheading my stuff up north, which is great. But then we just put some ads on Craigslist. We did some stuff on Facebook. Um, I'll be honest, I had the same, and you could probably see one or two of my rants, through social media, that had the same thing that everybody has. I mean, there were times where it's amazing to me, but there's like 3 or 4 in a row didn't show up for the interview. Like,
Huh.
why can't you just, it takes 2 seconds to call and just say, hey, I'm just not interested, you
Right.
know? it's amazing how many people do that. I even had one. She applied last year sometime. Didn't show up for the interview. Applied again. I
What?
brought her. I brought her in for the interview, and I was trying to figure out my timing on when I would tell her. You're like, you ghosted me like 6 months ago,
Right.
and I told her at the end, and it wouldn't have worked anyway. But I'm like, are you kidding me? Like this. I'm a big believer in karma, and if you do that kind of stuff, you're gonna get bit. Just be open with people. But a lot of the younger guys that we've gotten, I mean, some of that is, giving the credit to the guys through Facebook and Instagram and all that. I think a lot of the younger guys will, when they're looking at places to work, they're looking at that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They want to know that it's not all about me, and it's not all about me. I want to make sure that they get credit, and I'm also so in my 5 years, I've only yelled at my guys twice.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm pretty even keeled guy. Don't get too excited about much. Don't get too down about much. So it works, and I think a lot of the trades, and it is slowly changing. It just has to. Some of the issue with them not getting people is because they're assholes. Don't be an asshole. I mean, I see some people online, that are bitching and moaning about not being able to get people. But if you look at their personal pages, and they do silly rants and they do really crazy stuff, and well, no wonder. I mean, people can tell pretty easily that you're a jerk. Why would they want to come work for you?
I'm going to take 20 seconds and I'm going to say this. So I worked for my brother, and my brother once or twice he flipped out. But in general, we had a pretty high stress work environment. We were doing a lot of jobs in a lot of big things. Like my last project was installing. So I was a bricklayer by skill set, but basically did terrazzo and tile.
Very cool.
And my last project was like 50,000 square feet in emergency rooms in a hospital downtown, like this incredibly high traffic hospital. And so I'm project manager on this project. Like we're talking super high stress, and I have to give massive credit to my brother because I give him a lot of shit all the rest of the time because he's my brother. He did not do that. Right? Like he was a fantastic guy to work for, and he still works with some of the same people he's been working with for 15, 16 years. But I think I've had 16 guests on the show, and we're swinging 10 for 10 for the reason you can't keep your dudes is cuz you're an asshole.
Right.
Like
right. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, it's important to me so that I get to know them a little bit. I know where they come from, know a little bit about their family. I'm not going to be best friends with them. That's not what I'm going to do. But know a little bit about them. Know what their goals are. Know where they want to go. Be incredibly happy when they're enjoying their work, and praise them for that. I mean, what I found is there's a very small subset of people that really enjoy it, and there are. And if you find that person, freaking latch on. And I think that happens in the other trades too. I mean, I could never imagine changing plumbing and dealing with shit all day. No thanks. One or two guys that enjoy that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It just, and I think with the shortage, you're also seeing wage pressure. I have had to increase my starting wages and stuff, and that's okay. I mean, our rates are going up too on the other side, so it's okay that and I even talked to my guys just this last week. With the economy being the way it is, the opportunity for side work is just amazing. They're getting work all over the place, and I just told them, just be careful. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you also need to be open and honest with me. We're not going to do the conflict of interest stuff.
Right.
But be careful that you're doing everything on the up and up and everything that way too. So, yeah, yeah, and I think they respect me for that. I'm not gonna, I know you guys are doing it.
Yeah.
I, just be open and honest with me.
Right. If you have the skill, I know you're right. I know that there are the sort of like chuck in a truck jobs. And look, we've trained you really well. Like you have the reputation. We know that you do good work because that's why you're on the team. So we also know that like you're painting your neighbor's living room. Like we get it. We know
Right.
it's happening. That's fine. Do it. But freaking do it right.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome. And just being candid about that has got to get you so far. I
Yeah,
mean, like, would with me.
our handbook, originally said you had no side work allowed. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, come on. What? Let's live in reality a little bit here. Like, just they're gonna do it. It's okay, And it's like I said, they just need to be careful. And I told them all too. I mean, there are a couple things. Like, if I know that you're dragging because you're doing too much,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a conversation. I mean, we just are. It's one of the things I'm oddly running into is some of my guys are almost getting so used to me saying thank you and I appreciate it and all that if I forget to, I actually hear about it a little bit, which is weird. It's not a bad thing. It's just I guess it's just human nature. You get used to certain things, and then when you don't hear, it's like, oh crap, what the heck did I do? Yeah. I have bad days here and there too, and I forget, this or that. But yeah, it's been weird. It's been a little strange lately.
I don't know. Kudos to you, I guess. Like, I just thinking about that as a dad, even right, like having that consistency. If my daughters, I have two really young daughters. If they ran up to me and they showed me, Dad, I painted this picture, and I was like, and then if I didn't say like, oh, that's very nice, like that's great, they would be like, what's happening? And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that they know that they can come up to me, they can get that affirmation, and they can walk away, because not everybody gets that. And so you mentioned something. Now I'm thinking about dads and being one and having one and whatever. You actually, and you mentioned this in the handbook, you actually took the business over from your dad recently.
Yep.
Tell me more about, I mean, like, again, I sort of said this at the top, but like, so I have a dad who is in business, and I also was sort of in that attempt along with three of my other brothers. That did not go so well. How did it go well for you?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, it was like a roller coaster. There are certain days that were really good, and sometimes it was just really rough. So I got a degree in business and political science from Juniata College. It's a small college close to Penn State here in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
I worked as my first real job was as a lobbyist in Harrisburg, our state capital. Things were just weird there. I mean, like you said about being starstruck, I never really was starstruck by those guys. Like, they wanted that. They wanted you to fawn all over them, and I couldn't do it. So it didn't work for me being in that industry. And then I took another side tour. I worked in the equipment industry for a little bit, and things just were happening with my dad. And every once in a while, he'd reach out to me every 2 or 3 years and say, hey, just wanted to let you know, it'd be really cool if you come work for me, and blah blah blah. And it just happened that I lost a position in the equipment company that I was working for at the same time that things were happening with my dad's business. So took a little bit of a chance. I worked in the field for about 8 months. And then I came into the office and started doing estimating and project managing and all that good stuff. We worked together for probably almost 4 years. something
Okay.
like that. And as of January 1, he's officially retired.
Wow.
Yeah, and you can kind of read a little bit into that there were it's just easier that he's retired. To be
Sure.
honest, it's going to be better. It's going to be better for our relationship and everything going forward too. Because you know, I only yelled at the guys twice in the last 5 years, but him and I had some screaming
Mm,
matches, for sure, about different things. So, and
interesting.
that's tough. That's a it's a tough thing, and I'm an only child too, so
Oh, okay.
there's no other person to
Right. Yeah.
go
He
say,
didn't get to take a
he's
crack at it and
yeah.
learn for the
Oh,
first couple kids. Yeah.
right. He's an asshole or whatever. There's no none of that. I can't. Yeah, I couldn't go to my sister and brother and commiserate with them. There
Yeah.
isn't that. So
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
mhm.
Right. If I ever needed to blow off some steam, right, I can call a sibling.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Well, and frankly, that's just fascinating and incredibly impressive. I mean, uh, being a second generation, people talk about family business and as it's sort of like this bastion of um, something to be impressed by. And I think it is. Being my family has lots of little businesses. We might not have been able to take over from my dad, but he really inspired each one of us to start something on our own.
Yeah, very cool.
And uh, looking at things that are second generation, third, fourth generation, like you mentioned in this group you're part of, like knowing what that takes, what you have to go through to get there, like you personally, me having failed at it, frankly. I'm constantly just in awe of those people who I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing you were able to make that transition. Like, so you said something, I want to ask you about this, and then I'm going to move into the R123. But you specifically said you're kind of always staying involved in painting contractors associations and talking about like all ships rising. And tell me a little bit about that. Like, how do you stay connected within the industry?
So probably late '80s. It had to be late '80s. My dad got involved with the PCA. It's the Painting Contractors Association.
Mm-hmm.
There was a local chapter, still is, but doesn't really meet. And then there were larger regional groups, and then they have the national group. And pretty early on, being as small as he was, he realized that the one or two contractors that knew what the heck they were doing. Why wouldn't I, go and ask them, hey, how would you do this, or how would you tackle that? And
Yeah.
there's a commercial painting company in Lancaster, so about 40 minutes from us, 45 minutes from us, that I used to call the owner of that company Uncle Morris. We were that close. We go to Phillies games and do all kinds of different stuff. And at that point, it seemed like information was flowing amongst different contractors, and things were good. And then it seemed like for some reason, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, that a lot of that stopped. And a lot of people got, a little more siloed,
Yeah.
a little more scared to, I don't know if it was scared, but didn't want to share anything about what they were doing, or, what best practices would be, or anything. They were just holding it to their chest. But right now, it seems like in the last, 5 to 10 years, probably more 5, there's a good group of younger painting contractors around the country that are really pushing to, collaborate more and help each other out. And even some local, I mean, here in Mechanicsburg, there's a really well-known cabinet painter. And she, I've done trainings with her, and, she's done different things for us. So why not? Why not help each other out? I think one of the things, again, is, it's one of those mid to long term things. If we help each other out, the guys who are reputable and the guys who care and all that stuff, I think it makes the industry come off better,
Yeah.
look better to the consumer, and it kind of leaves the crap heads behind a little bit more.
Yeah.
one of the things in painting is the barriers to entry are just incredibly small. I mean, you can go get a ladder and a bucket and a paintbrush and go sell a paint job. I
Right.
mean, it's that easy. So it's important that, you know, the guys that have been doing this for a while, or even the guys who are starting and you can tell are taking it seriously, that, you know, that we're helping each other, and that we are getting it out there, that, you know, painters aren't a bunch of drunks and, you know, all that stuff that's just was a stereotypical
Sure.
thing that a lot of consumers, you know, thought. You know, my senior crew lead, he's been with us for 32 years, so I've known him since I was
Wow.
6. Yeah, I've known him since I was, well, 5 or 6.
Whew.
He won the Craftsman of the Year award to the PCA last year, and that was huge for me because
Hmm.
Jody was, you know, one of the reasons the company is what it is. And I still remember he talks about a story where we were working for a lawyer, and the lawyer said, "Well, yo, you know, I'm a lawyer. You guys are you're just a painter." And Jody said, "Whoa, hold on a second. I've been doing this for, I think at that point, it was 25 years.
Yeah.
There's maybe 8 people in this 4 or 5 county area that can do what I can do.
Yeah.
How many people in this area can do what you can do? You know what I mean? How many hundreds of lawyers are there
Oh
around
yeah.
that can do what you can do? There's the difference. So don't tell me that I'm just a painter, because I can do high end stain work. I can do beautiful stuff that it would take you years to learn how to do."
Yes. Well, that guy apparently has never tried to stain anything.
Right, 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 right,
As someone who has sanded a floor and stained a table in my day, holy shit, that stuff is
right,
way more.
right. It looks easy.
Yeah, you just brush it on, right? No.
No.
Well, that's a fantastic story. And just really, I mean, really powerful. Like, and it really speaks against something that we sort of deal with all the time, which is there are bad actors in every industry, right? Like, I mean, we know that lawyers get a bad rap because they do. And we also know that, like, yeah, you said it, like painters are, you know, or they're just a bunch of drunks or they're not going to show up, or, you know, every roofer, it's a scam artist. And like I've been there, done that, right? So like not only have I been in the trades, now I'm in search marketing, specializing for home service companies. Like what, I'm in the biggest sham industry, like, right? Like we talk about this all the time. We're like, yeah, well, we do our best work for companies that have already fired 3 other ones. Like
Sure.
we get it. And so there is that perception that you have to deal with. And like you said, it's really playing that long game of being like, look, we know what people say. We get it. We own that. And we know we're going to have to deal with that. And we're going to have to dig in our heels, and we're going to have to do a great job. And building that reputation and staying consistent is the thing that's going to get us around that. And it sounds like you have done all of those things, like the way that you hire, the way that you think about the vision of the company, the way that you're thinking about longer term planning, the way that you were able to actually make that transition, the way, like everything speaks to you're holding the line on quality. You know that if you do that and you're hanging out with other people who are also pushing a high quality, that let's call it the good ships will rise.
Right.
And the more that the good ships will rise, naturally, it'll be known that there is good in that trade, that there are people who do fantastic, and that it elevates the trade overall. And that's what we all want, right? Like we all want to stop being perceived as shisty, gonna take your money and run people.
I tell
So
my
anyway.
guys, yeah, I tell my guys, not all of, you know, I remind them here and there, you know, it's not all about having that project be 100% quality either. The
Mm,
2 biggest things that customers complain about with contractors is they're never on time.
hmm
You know, they never communicate communicate if they're going to be late or whatever. So, even when me and my sales guy go out and do an estimate and we're running 5 or 10 minutes, but we're making that call. Even if we're
Mm-hmm.
going to be 2 or 3 minutes, we're going to say, hey, I'm just around the corner. I'm sorry, I'm running a little late. That's huge for people. It's amazing how often you say that you hear, well, I really appreciate that you called. They're just not used to that. And then the other thing is cleanliness. We hear it all the time. Well, I had to take, so much time to clean up after you guys were gone or whatever. And
Mm,
my guys are really big about making sure that stuff is clean, or at least communicating to the customer, hey, is it okay that we leave this stuff, over here for the night? Because we'll be back to work on that room in the morning or whatever.
right.
You don't want to have them have to do a bunch of cleaning, after you're out. So that's huge too.
Well, I could spin off a whole thing about like communication and expectations and sort of how we're being trained as consumers to get like not just regular communication, but almost over communication from every other place, right? Like I get a text or email update from Amazon or from DoorDash or from right like the stuff that I interact with every single day, all the rest of the time is keeping me up to the minute, like Domino's tracker style. Like,
Well, I mean, you probably have a medical portal,
yes.
that you go on and you can see where if you had a test done or whatever, where that is. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't think anyone's built that out, but I mean, that'd be kind of cool down the road to, hey, customer, you can go in and on the portal and see where things are. The guys can post on there or whatever, something easier. I think it has to be a passive thing
Yeah.
though, too, has to come in that they don't have to do much to see
Hmm.
it because nobody has time or wants to, have to be active to know what's going on.
No, that's right. Yeah. And I don't have to log into anything to
Right.
see my tracking updates from UPS. Right.
Right.
So, but that's a fascinating idea. I'm going to go talk to some people about that. I'll give you full credit. Uh,
5%.
yeah, yeah. It was Zach's idea. Okay, I want to get into this new thing I'm going to try to do. We'll see. So bear with me. Give me a little grace, but we're going to wrap up with what I'm calling the 1, 2, 3. And so I'm going to ask you 1 and then 2 and then 3 questions along 3 different lines. And so you don't have to think very hard about them. You can obviously answer as honestly as you want. But so the first question is, what's one book people should read to help them grow their business?
Mm. Ooh, probably traction. I would say
Yeah.
is the biggest one that sets a structure. I really like starts with why because that kind of helped me. With Simon Sinek starts with why because that kind of helped me get to our core values and you talk about why we're doing what we're doing. That's all good stuff there. But to really have a structure and really, you know, not have issues just last forever.
Yep.
Deal with them is traction's probably the best one for that.
I'm hyper biased, obviously, because I have like multiple copies of Traction sitting behind me on my bookshelf.
Yeah.
EOS user manual. Okay. Two, and sorry if I catch you off guard with this, but who are 2 partners that you would recommend any painter have? Let me define the question just a smidge, which is I talked to a solar company recently and I said, who are the 2 partners you'd recommend any solar company have? And he's like, you have to have an electrician and you have to have a ditch digger. And really, you should also have a roofing friend because solar guys are not actually roofers. Like everybody thinks it sort of goes back and forth, but it doesn't. It's separate. So, same question to you. What are 2 partners you'd recommend every painting company have on call?
The first thing is a color consultant.
Hmm.
Yeah, we started using a color consultant a couple years ago, and it's huge. Especially women love her. She comes in and helps them out, and even when we're doing an estimate, we'll say, even if you know or you're really close to picking your colors, Cheryl will just help you out. She'll just make sure that you'll feel better that she's telling you you're on the right track with it. So that's huge for us. That's been great for us. I think it's actually helped our interior business, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea that I would never have thought of.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, people, that's the toughest thing inside, is just figuring out what colors you want. The other thing, probably switching to the well, um, we just kind of partnered with a power washing company.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to do all our power washing in house, but we're okay at it. But it takes longer for us than it would be for a professional. And in some of the areas that we go to, they may be off wells, or other, and we just can't, you can't pool water from a well. You're going to burn their well out. So these guys come with a big box truck and hot water, and they go at it. And honestly, they're cheaper to the customer than we would be to the customer. So that's been great. Others, probably the third one. I know you said two, but the third one is having some kind of trim carpenter, or something that can, come help deal with rotted wood and all that. Especially when you work on the older houses, you're gonna have that. So
that's awesome. Again, I talked to Marty about this, but it's really just about that, like, serving the homeowner, right? And instead of leaving them sort of being like, well, that's not our job, to be like, no, we're going to serve you. And tying it back to something you said before, I'm derailing myself. Half of your customer base is people who you've worked with before. So, like, of course you would want to take super good care of them. So what a fantastic set of potential partners. Okay. Last question.
Well, hold on with that a little bit. So, you have to balance a little, though, because one thing what we found is that if we do too much for them and something goes wrong, then it's all on us. So what we try to do is, refer people to good partners to take care of them in that way, rather than, I don't want to be a builder. I don't want to have everything under my one roof. I would rather specialize in painting and just do that well. Let everybody else do their thing.
Yeah, you have a stack of these people's cards, and you hand them when hey, here's this issue that came up. We can say this is a quality referral. It's not my company, but I feel very confident that this person can take care of you, and then you can hand that card.
Blasters are huge too. There's not so many of them around anymore, that can do, good plaster work.
Oh man, I watch some of those guys on Instagram and I'm like, that's amazing. It's almost like you have to know a little bit about it in order to be impressed, but some of these guys are freaking amazing still. Okay, 3 predictions. So I'll break this down. Can you make one marketing prediction that you think we will see true in 2021 and 2022, specifically in the home services? What's one thing that you would be like, guys, we got to do this with our marketing?
I think you're starting to see it already, and I think it's been written a lot about, but it's using more video, big time. I think the momentum is slowly increasing with it, but yeah, definitely doing that. And I got involved a little bit with oh, come on, auto. Sorry, always.
That's super normal.
You should. I'm sure it's the mailman.
Right? Yeah.
The mail person.
He's just like, I want to be part of this too.
Okay. So, where were we going? Marketing wise, it's definitely using video, and I'm trying to do more and more of that. And then I think it's just staying up on the platforms. We're not into Snapchat or anything like that. I think that's a little too young. But I know guys that are into, what's the one based out of China? I can't remember the name of it. TikTok. Yeah. We've done 1 or 2 little things there, but I don't think anyone, and that's, again, if I get into that, it's going to be a long game. You're not going to see much out of that right away.
I'm about to talk to this guy, Mark Jones, who is a pool guy. And I would have agreed with you all the way up until Mark Jones. And then Mark Jones apparently got 2 million followers in
Wow.
like 3 months. Like it's just,
On TikTok.
on TikTok.
Wow.
Freaking insane. His videos are straight baller. Like they're
Gotcha.
so good. So anyway, actually plays to exactly what you're saying. So okay, another one, which is hiring. What's your prediction for the rest of the year and for 2022 as we move into that? What's one thing that you would call out like, hey, we got to do this for hiring?
Hiring wise, I think I'm not a big trumpeter of myself, but I would really like to see other contractors give more credit to their guys.
Yeah.
And I really think that's something that a lot of them are missing. And if you would do that more, I think you would have better hires and you would attract more people to come work for you. Now I know there's some older, painters and stuff that don't want that attention. I get it, but you need to explain that to them that, this is important and these are the reasons why. Yeah.
Fantastically well said. And the last one is painting specifically. This is what's going to happen for painters in the rest of the year and what we're going to see next year happen. Buckle down, guys. This is this is my prediction.
I think you're going to see a little drop off. Because of COVID, and everybody's sitting at home, it was amazing how many people called us and said, I've been looking at this wall for years and it's just not what I want. But, now that I'm home all the time, I think I really want to take it taken care of. So we got a lot of that. And now that things are starting to open up again, I think you're going to see a lot of the home industry dollars move back into hospitality, move back into going on vacations and all that stuff. It's kind of market specific because I know some markets are going to be down and all that. But I think for us, we'll still stay steady. There's a lot of new construction in our area. We don't do new construction, but they will be our customers. So I think for me, it's all about organic growth, just steadily or organically growing. So I think that's where we'll be.
Awesome. Fantastic predictions. And I'll obviously, if we'll follow up later, right, be like, hey, this is you were so right. Except for that one thing.
Right.
Zach, it has been amazing having you on the show. You were super cool during the pre-show. You were awesome on the show. Like, I'm so hyped for what you guys are doing. Your Instagram is freaking cool, and I glance at it every couple of days just because I like seeing that fantastic work.
I really figured out a little better for you too.
Yeah, thanks.
A little baby phase earlier.
You got our beards on. And so as we wrap up, where can people find Zach? Where can people find Ausherman? Just tell me a little bit about that.
So Aushermanpainting.com. So my last name's AUSHERMAN, and then painting, of course. And then it's Ausherman. I think it's at Ausherman Painting on Instagram. Same thing on Facebook. And then you can find me through there too. I'm connected to all those accounts. So, all good stuff.
Fantastic. Once again, it has been amazing having you on. I can't wait to follow up with you on these predictions in 8 months, and we'll see how you did. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to quote my friend Aaron, and thank you so much for listening and for the privilege of your time. We'll see you.